Hello mate, and welcome to a new type of format that I'm working on. These aren't going to replace tutorials or anything like that. I just wanted to do little talks about games that I've played over the last 20 years that I may have particularly enjoyed or particularly not enjoyed, and do a little bit of a review on them, and also kind of lean on explaining specifically what I didn't like about a game or what I thought could have been improved on. So the first game I wanted to talk about is Subnautica. Subnautica was released back in 2018 and quickly made a name for itself as something pretty unique. It's a sci-fi action RPG set entirely on an ocean planet, and it really excels at creating a strong sense of atmosphere. It's immersive, it's satisfying, and it's just a really compelling world to spend time in. Now the visuals lean towards the cartoony side, but not so much that they break the illusion. It never feels too far-fetched or too stylized, or taking itself too seriously. That's largely thanks to the sound design, which does some serious heavy lifting. The ambient audio is excellent. Everything from bubbling silence of the deep ocean to the distant roars of alien sea creatures, it all works together to sell that feeling of being submerged in this strange, beautiful and sometimes terrifying world. One of Subnautica's standout features is its pacing. It's relatively chilled out compared to a lot of survival games. Sure, there is a narrative thread running through it, and it does build a sense of urgency over time, but it never forces your hand. You're not constantly being harassed by the game to move on to meet a deadline. It respects your time and your choices. It's really up to you how quickly or slowly you progress. And speaking of progression, that's a core part of how Subnautica structures itself. The game locks certain upgrades and story elements behind depth restrictions, meaning to go deeper in the ocean and access key resources or plot points, you need to upgrade your gear, specifically your submersibles. These vehicles are essential and they come in three main forms. First, there's the Seamoth. It's a small, single-occupant sub that's fast, nimble, and a great way to explore early on. The trade-off, though, is that it's fragile. Its hull can't withstand high pressures, so there's a hard ceiling on how deep you can go with it. Then you've got the Prawn Suit. It's more like a mech suit than a submarine, and it's designed for walking on the ocean floor. It's tougher, can handle much deeper depths, and is your go-to for mining large resource deposits. The downside, it's not exactly speedy. It's slow and a bit awkward to navigate in, especially over long distances on rugged terrain. Finally, there's the Cyclops. This is the big one. It's a full-scale submarine that serves as a mobile base. It comes with internal storage, modular systems, and even space to build small space components like fabricators or charging stations. It's incredibly versatile, but not without its limits. Space is tight, power management becomes an issue, and it's a bit of a beast to maneuver, especially in the tighter cave systems. Now, base building in Subnautica is another major gameplay system. It's fairly intuitive and honestly quite satisfying. You gather materials, pick a location, and snap components together to create your underwater habitat. And while the system is functional and lets you be creative, it does start to feel a bit superficial as the game goes on. Here's the thing. Once you've built a few key modules, like a moon pool for docking your vehicles and an upgrade station, there's not much incentive to go further. Sure, you can build bigger, more elaborate bases with decorative furniture, aquariums, nuclear reactors, you name it. But the game doesn't really reward you for doing that. The beds, for example, are completely cosmetic. Your character doesn't require sleep. Water filtration systems are nice, but you can easily survive without them. In my first playthrough, I poured hours into constructing a sprawling base with all of the bells and whistles. It was fun in the moment, tracking down rare materials, plotting out my ideal layout, getting everything just right, but in hindsight I spent very little time actually using that base once it was built. Most of the game takes place out in the open ocean, so it felt a bit like busy work once the novelty had worn off. It would have been nice if the game made more of a mechanical reason to build and maintain larger bases, to make it feel necessary, not just optional. This leads me into what I think is the game's biggest shortcoming, the story arc. Now don't get me wrong, the narrative is interesting, There's definitely a mystery to unravel, and the alien world is rich with lore if you're willing to dig into it. But the way it's delivered feels kind of clunky. The pacing of the story is backloaded. You spend the first chunk of the game sort of drifting, exploring, scavenging, scanning things, and every now and again you get a breadcrumb leading you to the next plot point. But it's all very linear and heavily gated by depth progression. Essentially, if you want to move the story forward, you go as deep as your current submersible allows, and sooner or later you'll stumble into the next area or find something important blueprints. It's not subtle, and after a while it starts to feel very formulaic. You can almost reverse engineer what you need to do just by looking at the crafting recipes. If something requires a material you haven't found yet, the odds are it's sitting at the next level down. It's a clever way to guide players without waypoints or quest markers, but it does make the late game feel predictable. Once the plot point starts to pick up speed, it really picks up, and before you know it, you've reached the end. After that, the game gives you the option to stick around, explore more, maybe build up your base, but by then there's very little left to do. No real reason to keep going other than perhaps your own personal satisfaction. So yeah, in a nutshell, Subnautica is a solid game. It's gorgeous, immersive and enjoyable, but the depth-based progression and backloaded story arc do leave the late game feeling a bit hollow and less fulfilling than it could have been. Still, if you're after a unique underwater survival experience with strong atmosphere and genuinely memorable moments, it's absolutely worth diving into. Thanks very much for listening. I hope you find that useful. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. But until then, you take damn good care of yourselves, alright? Bye bye.